Look at a world map, and Brazil is just there, a big green swath of South America. You know it's the fifth largest country on the planet, but knowing that fact and actually feeling the scale of the place are two very different things. We're going to try and bridge that gap, because Brazil is way, way bigger than you think. Let's start with a simple game of comparisons. When people think of large countries, they think of the United States. So picture the continental US. All of it, from Seattle to Miami, from San Diego to Boston. Now, take that entire massive landmass and add another chunk of land the size of Spain on top of it. That's Brazil. It is so large that it shares a border with every single country in South America except two, Chile and Ecuador. It's a geographical heavyweight that dominates an entire continent. To really get a grip on this, let's look at the distances. Brazil is longer from north to south than it is wide, stretching roughly 270 miles. To put that in a European perspective, if you placed Brazil over a map of Europe, its northern tip would be above the Netherlands, and its southern tip would be well below the boot of Italy, sinking deep into the Mediterranean Sea. It would stretch from the chilly, windy coast of Denmark all the way down to the scorching heat of North Africa. The country is so vast that it contains not just different ecosystems, but entirely different climate zones. Think about the equator. It cuts right through the northern part of Brazil, where you'll find the steamy, biodiversity-packed Amazon rainforest. But as you travel south, you leave the tropics behind. You pass through sprawling savannas and then into grasslands that are similar to the pampas of Argentina. And if you go even further south, to the state of Rio Grande do Sul, you'll find a region where it can and does snow in the winter. There are Gauchos, the Brazilian cowboys riding through the pampas, wearing ponchos to shield themselves from a cold, frosty wind. How many countries can you drive from a steaming jungle to a region where you can build a snowman? And that's just the north-south axis. Let's go east-west. The sheer width of Brazil means it has an incredible 4,600 miles of coastline, but its western border is deep in the heart of the continent. The sheer width also means that Brazil operates across not one, not two, but four standard time zones. The far western part of the Amazon, in the state of Acre, is 2 hours behind the bustling, futuristic metropolis of Brasilia. So when the sun is rising over the beaches of Rio de Janeiro, most of the country is still fast asleep in the dark. You get on a plane in São Paulo at 8 a.m. and fly west for 4 hours. You land and your watch says 12 p.m., but locally it's still only 10 a.m. You've effectively flown into a different temporal pocket of your own country. Now, let's talk about what fills this space. The most obvious feature is the Amazon. It's a word we all know, but its scale is almost beyond comprehension. The Amazon rainforest is often called the lungs of the world, but it's also a world unto itself. The Amazon River, the lifeblood of this forest, is a source of endless debate. For decades, it was considered the second longest river in the world after the Nile, but recent studies and satellite imagery have made a compelling case that the Amazon is actually the longest. We're talking about a river that pumps 200,000 cubic meters of water into the Atlantic Ocean every single second. That's so much fresh water that even far out at sea, miles from the coast, you can dip a cup into the ocean and drink water that is essentially fresh. Sailors in the 16th century would fill their casks with ocean water while still out of sight of land, thanks to the immense flow of the Amazon. But it's not just the river, it's the river system. The Amazon has over 1,100 tributaries. Many of these are themselves colossal rivers. 17 of them are over 1,000 miles long. Think about that. 17 rivers, each one longer than the Rhine or the Elbe in Europe, all flowing into a single main artery. These rivers aren't just water, they are highways. Thousands of communities scattered across the rainforest, there are no roads. Your local main street is a motorized canoe. Your nearest neighbor might be a day's boat journey away. The forest is so dense and vast that the rivers serve as the only connective tissue. This immensity leads to a kind of isolation that is hard to grasp. In the heart of the Amazon, there are indigenous tribes that have never had contact with the outside world. They live in a country of 215 million people in the 21st century, and yet they remain completely uncontacted, their villages hidden in the vast, uncharted green.
The Brazilian government's Agency for Indigenous Affairs, FUNAI, actually tracks these groups from the air, monitoring their longhouses and gardens to ensure their land is protected from illegal loggers or miners. You can fly for hours over the Amazon and see nothing but a carpet of green, knowing that down there entire societies exist, living in a way that has remained unchanged for millennia. And then you have the cities. To accommodate its population, Brazil has built some of the largest urban agglomerations on Earth. The São Paulo metropolitan area is home to over 22 million people. That's more people than the entire countries of Chile, Australia, or the Netherlands. The city itself is so huge that it has its own internal climate, created by the heat generated from millions of cars and air conditioners. It has its own pollution haze that can be seen from space. The distance from one end of this single, sprawling city to the other can take over 3 hours by car in heavy traffic. This vastness breeds a certain mindset. It breeds diversity. The culture of a cowboy in the southern grasslands is completely different from a fisherman in a northeastern coastal village, which is completely different from a rubber tapper deep in the Amazon, which is completely different from a finance worker in a high-rise in São Paulo. They speak the same language with accents so thick they can sometimes be hard for each other to understand. They eat different foods, listen to different music, and live in different worlds all under the same flag. So, the next time you see Brazil on a map, don't just see a country, see a continent in miniature. See a place where you can cross the equator and experience both tropical humidity and sub-freezing temperatures. See a place where the rivers are oceans, the forest is a universe, and the distances are measured not in miles, but in the sheer staggering diversity of life and landscape they contain. Brazil isn't just a big country, it's a collection of many countries, stitched together by a common language and an immense, unforgettable scale.